Here's a thing you've never noticed about yourself. You know, on some level, not intellectually, but in your bones, that the universe is old. Like, genuinely, incomprehensibly old. 13.8 billion years. You can't visualize that number? Nobody can. But you don't feel surprised by it. It lands right. It fits. The universe was here for a long time before you showed up. Sure. Obviously. That makes sense. Now try the other direction. The universe will continue for longer than that after you die. Probably much, much longer. The current best models say it won't end. Not really. Not in any meaningful sense. For something like 10 to the power of 100 years. That's a number so large it doesn't have a name. The universe after your death will make the universe before your birth look like a rounding error. And you know that. You just heard it. But you don't feel it. The past stretches back, and you accept it. The future stretches forward, and something in you quietly refuses. Not panics. Doesn't even flinch. Just refuses. Files it away. Moves on. Why does the exact same scale of time feel completely different depending on which direction it's pointing? The obvious answer is death anxiety. You're scared of dying, so you don't like thinking about the world after you're gone. Case closed. Next video. Except that's not quite it. Because it doesn't explain the asymmetry. Death anxiety would make you uncomfortable thinking about your own death. That's reasonable. But you're not just uncomfortable thinking about your death. You're specifically unable to feel the future the way you feel the past. These are different problems. Try this. Think about the year 1200. Random medieval Tuesday, died 2. People living, dying, having arguments about grain. You can feel that it happened. There's a weight to it. A fairness. Now think about the year 2800. People living, dying, having arguments about whatever people argue about in 2800. Same exercise, right? Same distance from now, just in the other direction. It doesn't land the same way. The past has texture. The future has nothing. Just a kind of smooth blankness where the feeling should be. This isn't about death. You're not afraid of the year 2800. You just can't feel it. And the question of why you can feel one direction and not the other is actually a question about what your brain is fundamentally doing when it constructs the experience, and that answer is weirder than the death anxiety one. Your brain doesn't experience time. It reconstructs it. Right now in this moment you have a sense of the present. This sentence, this room, this particular Tuesday or whatever day it is. But that sense of now is built from memory. Your brain takes what just happened and assembles it into a continuous stream. The experience of the present moment is, technically, always slightly in the past. The past, then, is something your brain is extremely good at. It has a whole system for it. Episodic memory. Yay. Semantic memory. The feeling of pastness, that quality that tells you something happened rather than is happening, is a real neurological signal your brain generates constantly and stores and retrieves. The future doesn't have that system. You can plan for the future. You can imagine it, vaguely. But the brain generates the future as a projection, a simulation, not as a retrieval. And simulations feel different. They feel thin. They don't have the weight of the past because they haven't been encoded. They haven't happened to you yet. And your brain, quite reasonably, doesn't file them under real things that exist. So when you try to feel 13 billion years of future universe, you a wall. Not because the future is frightening, but because your brain has no mechanism to make it feel real. The past got encoded, not your past personally, but the pastness of it, the weight of events having occurred, and the future is just a sketch, a placeholder. You are, in a very literal sense, a creature made of the past. The future is not your native territory. Here's the part that should bother you more than it does. If the past feels real because your brain encodes it, and the future feels thin because your brain can't, then the past isn't actually more real than the future. It just feels that way. The universe doesn't care about the direction your neurons prefer to file things. The year 2800 is exactly as real as the year 1200. It's just that 1200 already happened and 2800 hasn't yet, and your brain treats hasn't happened yet as equivalent to might not be real, which is a useful shortcut for navigating Tuesday. Not super accurate at cosmological scales. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because if your felt sense of the past is a construction, if the weight and texture and there-ness of history is something your brain generates rather than perceives, then what you're experiencing as, it's a mood your brain is in, a way of processing. The past feels permanent. It feels like the ground under everything. But it's a representation. The universe doesn't store it. There's no cosmic hard drive where 1200 AD is filed. Those events happened, and then they stopped. The only place they exist now is in the marks they left, and in the brains of the people who happen to be constructing a felt sense of history right now. You're doing it right now. You're generating the past. And when you stop, that particular version of the past stops with you. The future isn't the thin one. You are. This isn't a you problem, by the way. This is a humanity problem. Every culture that's ever developed a cosmology, and every culture treats the past as the substrate of reality and the future as contingent. The past is what happened. The future is what might happen. In every mythological system, in every religious tradition, in every pre-scientific worldview, the world has a history. A creation story. A before. Very few have an equally vivid after. The Norse had Ragnarok. The Hindus have a cyclical model where time folds back on itself. Christianity has an end of days. But in almost every case, the eschatology, the doctrine of endings, is shorter, less detailed, less felt than the cosmogony, the doctrine of beginnings. People have always found it easier to imagine where things came from than where they're going. And you can see this in language too. In almost every language, the past is described as behind you, something you've already passed through. But the future is in front of you, which should make it feel close, reachable. It doesn't, because in front of you also means you can't see it until you're there. The past you've walked through, the future is the road ahead with the headlights off. And all of this, the neuroscience, the mythology, the linguistics, is pointing at the same thing, which is that humans are creatures for whom real and past are nearly synonymous. We live in a perpetual reconstruction of what already happened, calling it now. The future isn't scary because it's the end. It's unsettling because it isn't yours yet. It hasn't been processed. It hasn't been made real. It exists in the same category as things that might not happen, which is, for the human brain, the same category as things that might not exist. So, what? Back to the original thing. Why does the past feel real and the future feel thin? Not because of death anxiety. Not because the past is actually more real, but because you are a machine that runs on the past. You're built from processed experience. The present moment is reconstructed from memory. The feeling of continuity, of being a self that persists through time, is the brain's version of a greatest hits compilation, playing on a loop, updated second by second. The future hasn't been added to the playlist yet. And here's the thing you're probably already feeling, which I'm not going to say out loud because I don't need to. The universe existed for 13.8 billion years before you were born. You didn't feel those years as absence because there was no you to feel anything. After you die, the universe will continue. The best models suggest for spans of time so large, the number has no name, and you won't feel that either. Same reason. The asymmetry you feel, that heavy, textured past, and that thin, sketched future, that asymmetry is not a feature of the universe. It's a feature of being a particular kind of thing inside the universe. A thing with memory, with continuity, with a brain that turns the past into the experience of now. The universe doesn't have that. The universe doesn't experience its own duration in any direction. It just continues. Indifferent to whether anything inside it can feel its age. You can feel the past because you were made by it. You can't feel the future because the future hasn't made anything yet. And when it does, when the universe after your death is someone else's heavy, textured, undeniable past, you won't be the one feeling it. Someone else will be sitting exactly where you are, reconstructing now from everything that came before, taking the past for granted, finding the future thin, not noticing the asymmetry, just like you didn't, until just now.